Hello and welcome to Odds Premier League match day 14 midweek games after the London Derby. Chelsea Arsenal, it finished in a draw, and now we have Arsenal 5 points clear from Man City, so still everything is open. Tom, also glad to see 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 scoring a goal for Liverpool. Did you enjoy the London Derby? What the hell was thinking Caicedo, Paquetá with these red cards?
Yes, I mean, to be fair to Caicedo, I think he is trying to sort of be a tough guy in central midfield and win the ball when he got it wrong and rightly got sent off. I think Lucas Paquetá is an idiot, and he's proven himself to be an idiot multiple times now during his time in England, and I'm looking forward to never, ever seeing him play for my team again, so that's going to be fun.
Even his tweet after the game is a silly tweet.
Grow up. Grow up, Paquetá. Like,
instead of asking for forgiveness, say sorry, guy, if you just screw it up. Well, let's enjoy these midweek games. A lot of favorites. The big guns should win their games, but this is the Premier League and this is very open, and now the calendar gets really, really tight. So stay with us. Of course, Tom is going to give you the latest news about the Premier League. Don't forget to press the like, to subscribe. Let's go on now with the show. Let's start with the games we have on Tuesday. 3 games. Bournemouth, Everton is the first one. It's only 1 point in the last 4 games for Bournemouth. They took the lead in the Stadium of Light 2-0 after 20 minutes, but they ended up losing. Usually they are much better at home, and that's why they are favorites. Everton, so hard to predict always after winning against Man United. They crumble at home, losing to Newcastle. Tom, I guess is the perfect game also for Bournemouth to go back and win it, although should be tight.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game that Bournemouth need at this moment in time, where they are just conceding so many goals. And that is the concern. And at the start of the season, they sold all those players, Howson and 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗵, and the quality of defenders they sold, and lost 𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐴, the keeper, as well. And we were like, oh, okay, 𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗏 looks good, and 𝗵𝗏 looks good, and yada, 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 𝗵𝗏 looks good. But they are all not as good as those that have left. And the reason the Iraola style has worked so well for Bournemouth is because the back door was always pretty closed. And now it is swinging open as we get towards this tough part of the season. 3 Man City, 4 Villa, 2 West Ham, 3 Sunderland. And if you are going to play this to and fro, ultra offense, everyone at 100 the whole game sort of press way, you need to have really good defenders having exceptional games. It's not to say Senesi and the others have played poorly. They just haven't been exceptional, and you've got to be exceptional to play in this way. But they are going to score goals, as we saw, 2 in the last game and 2 in the one before that. And so every Bournemouth game, well worth watching at this moment in time. That's not always true of Everton. I think that's fair to say. I was shocked by the game at the 𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗀 a couple of days ago. I didn't see Newcastle scoring 4. It went totally against all form that game, and certainly wasn't something I predicted. But the early goal in Everton games can be massive. If they concede early and they concede first, they can be in trouble because there's not a great deal of counterpunch when it comes to Everton. If they score the first goal, as we saw at Old Trafford and we saw against Fulham, they are more than capable of seeing games through. That's a very David Moyes way of playing football. The first goal is often king. And so if they get it here, there's every chance they can hold on to victory in a way that sort of West Ham couldn't, or Bournemouth couldn't against Sunderland at the weekend. If Bournemouth score the first goal, I think they could rack up a strong scoreline here. Evanilson struggling with form. Semenyo, has he been distracted by recent talk of moving away from the club? On the other side, Grealish is not performing at all. We're getting no numbers now from Jack Grealish. We're getting very little from N'Jai on the other side. Only 𝗵𝗵𝗏 of the 3 behind the striker, really in any particular good form. I don't think Keane and 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗀 have been playing well before the Newcastle game. Jordan Pickford had a real stinker in the game at the weekend as well. So it's a tough one to call. And I think first goal is going to be absolutely crucial. If I was to pick a team to get it, I would say Bournemouth and take the Bournemouth win at 2.2. If they get 1, I think they'll go on to get 2, maybe 3. 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 as a group bet comes in at 4, which I think is really respectable. I think first goal is your winner in this game. You decide who it's going to be. I'll take Bournemouth.
Bournemouth to score 1.5 goals. So 𝐿𝐵𝗿𝗄 should be a tight one, but it's so hard to predict this. Everton. Next one is a tricky one, in my opinion. Fulham, Man City, because, yeah, Man City are second in the standings, chasing Arsenal, only 5 points away, but something is lacking. They don't control the games, and we saw it against Leeds. Remember, they were coming from back-to-back defeats against Leverkusen and Newcastle, but once upon a time, I think we had never seen this happening to a Pep's team, just switching off and getting Leeds back in the score sheet. Very, very close to drop points, and it's not an easy stadium going to Craven Cottage, back-to-back wins for Fulham. Only one defeat at their stadium against Arsenal was a tight one. So this is a tricky one for Man City.
Yeah, tough game to call this. I think that a few weeks ago, Fulham were finding themselves listing in the Premier League, and they saw this run of fixtures as one that could really define their season. Home against Wolves, home against Sunderland, got the win in both. The Tottenham win was unexpected, but when you go to Tottenham and score 2 goals in 6 minutes, you can then hold on for the next hour against a team lacking in creativity, and they managed that game so well, Fulham, and well deserved to win it. I think the interesting thing they've done recently is drop 𝗀𝗵𝗍𝗄. He is a man for all seasons and all positions. 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿. I've seen him play everywhere on the football field, I think, apart from in goal. And dropping him deeper alongside Sander Berge has given them creativity. It's given them a chance to get Kevin in the starting 11. And Kevin, King and Wilson behind the striker. The only fit one is 𝐵𝗀𝗍𝗻𝐻, has worked really well in recent weeks. And 𝗍𝗻𝗻 scoring the winner against Sunderland. You know, he's still got it, 𝐵𝗀𝗍𝗻𝗻. And I think having him on the field and not doing the switch for the injured Rodrigo Muniz has sort of helped Fulham as well. So, look, they're finding their feet. They're finding their form. 3 wins in 4 is really impressive. And they're winning games against teams. Looking at the last 2 home games, you'd expect them to win against. That's how you move away from relegation danger. And that is what Fulham have done. In terms of Man City, weirdo performance against Leeds at the weekend. At times, very impressive. The opening 10, 20 minutes, they could have blown Leeds out of the water. But then what they don't have, and we keep talking about this, is people that can see them through the tough parts of games. They need Rodri back. I would suggest 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐿, who's out, might be someone who might be able to see them through games as well. Reinders is not stepping up. He is not proving to be the player that can get hold of the ball and see them through tough spells in games. He's struggling in this team. There's no one else of the other midfielders, Nico or whomever, who is putting their foot on the ball, taking control of the game and seeing them through the 10, 15 minutes start of the second half where Leeds were quite good. And City absolutely crumbled there. And there's every chance Leeds could have got something from the game, if not won the game at the weekend, the way they crumbled. We saw it with the second string against Leverkusen. We saw it at points against Newcastle. They are just lacking senior heads in that central midfield. And when Donnarumma has a bad game and they can't get the ball to Haaland in the penalty box, there are issues there with Man City. And you could see just how much it meant to Guardiola to get over the line in that game a couple of days ago. Phil Foden pulls them out of the soup at the very last minute. So it's a really difficult one, this. I think City's away form is pretty poor across the season. They have struggled away from home, and they didn't really seem up for the battle against Newcastle a couple of weeks ago in their last away game. In terms of Fulham, I'm intrigued by them. I think if this game had been in 2 or 3 weeks' time and we'd seen a home win against a really tough team, I might well have picked for them. But because it's Man City, because Fulham have not really picked up a big result against a big team in good form this season, I'll still take Man City at 1.7, but I do think it's going to be very, very close. 1-0 either way, 2-1 either way. I wouldn't discount the 1-1 draw, but I'd certainly look at under 3.5 goals in the game. City by exactly 1 is 3.75. I think it's going to be really, really tight, this. It could be a scrappy Haaland 1-0. City under 2.5 goals and City win 4.5. I think it's really, really generous. But yeah, look at Fulham as well. The odds on them alone, quite good. But I think either way, 1-0, 2-1, very tight. Good game, this.
I thought it was a mistake in our head-to-head tab, Tom. But if you check the head-to-head between these two teams, 13 wins in 13 games for Man City. Look at it. There you go. You cannot see a one-sided head-to-head. like this one by Man City. Even 𝐿𝐵𝗿𝗲𝗀 is saying I also like the draw option, but there is something strange there. The our AI is telling us total corners under 10.5. This is the smart bet for this game. And let's go to the next one. Newcastle Tottenham. Of course, it's impossible to go back Tottenham at this moment on time. 1.7. If you are back in Newcastle, perhaps in the best moment after their first away win of the season against Everton, also beat Man City, but still far away from the European spots. Actually, these two teams are level on points, and we might think that Tottenham are even worse than Newcastle, because we mentioned it, Tom, how bad they were at home. But losing to Fulham, seeing 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀 doing so many stupid mistakes, is the third consecutive defeat for Tottenham, winless in 4. So it is looking really bad for them.
It is. Something's not right at Tottenham at this moment in time, and it's going to be difficult to kind of pinpoint what it is. I think that I mentioned the home form a lot when they play at home, and the Fulham game is another example of it. Like that home crowd. I saw a post a couple of days ago. I don't know how true it is, but there's a guy that pays $2,000 for his season ticket, and he's been going for the best part of 2 years, and he's seen 3 wins, and it works out about £700 per win that he's paid at home for Tottenham. And I think that's the problem with Spurs, is that the home form has been so bad for so long that the fans have started to get just completely disconnected with the team, because they now connect going to the stadium with losing and misery and the long train home, and where do we go from here? And it's all blooming miserable. And I think Thomas Frank has to turn that home form around. It's the most important thing at Spurs right now. The away form's been fine. Not amazing, but fine. And they're well built to win away games. I think that Van der Ven and Danso seem a better pairing than Van der Ven and Romero, who is ever a liability. And I think I'd keep Danso in alongside him if it were me. I think the midfield, he's tried so many combinations now. Is it Gray? Is it Sarr? Is it Bentancur alongside Palhinha? Is it 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀? None of them really work, because they need a Maddison. And without a Maddison alongside a Palhinha looks... He does one thing, Palhinha, which is win the ball back or foul you, and that's it. The rest of the game isn't quite there, and he needs the guy alongside him to be different. So playing 2 people alongside him can be tough. Better in away games than home. And then offensively, great goal from Kudus at the weekend, but he drifts in and out. He's there and disappears. We see nothing from Richarlison really regularly, nothing from 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀 Simmons. Lots of players here that just need to prove they're good enough to play for Tottenham. And this is a great chance to do that in a setup where I think it will favour the way Thomas Frank wants to play, as opposed to having a lot of the ball in home games against the Wolves or a Fulham or whomever. In terms of Newcastle, that was such a great performance against Everton. And it was really, really needed, considering the home form has been great, but the away form has been poor. If they start to match the away form with the home form, then everyone's in trouble, because Newcastle are very rarely beaten at home. Every week we talk about the midfield, Joelinton, Guimaraes, and Sandro Tonali. There's a little bit of rotation in there. Lewis Miley has come in, or Joe Willock has come in at points. But if the first choice midfield is there, I think you've got the best midfield 3 in the league. If one other player comes in, be it Miley, likely for this game, then slightly not as good as the best team you could put out. But I still think that's a really decent Premier League midfield. Up front, 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗀 scoring again. That's important. 5 now in the season for him. Good goal against Everton. Barnes and Elanga, or Barnes and Murphy. Good to see Elanga having an impact at last there. So, look, good going forward. I think 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗀's been fantastic at the back. Ramsdale is a better goalkeeper at this moment in time than Pope. So it all turns around for Newcastle. You've got to back them to win here at 1.77. And I think this will be a really interesting game in terms of, again, first goal is going to be critical. If Newcastle get it, I would not back Tottenham to score. So I'll take Newcastle to win to 0 at double your money. Screams 2-0 Newcastle at 8.5. I think at least 2 goals. Look out for 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 to score at least 1. And I think more trouble for Spurs going into next weekend.
We spoke about 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 in our previous video, and he scored a beauty indeed against Everton. A lot of quality despite his height. Newcastle win by 2 or more goals. Timothy is telling us Tottenham are terrible indeed. So stay away from them. Tony, over 2.5 goals and both teams to score. For this one, Tottenham totally a disgrace indeed. All the hype with the new manager is gone, and they look as doomed as last season, only doing better. In Europe, let's go to the games we have on Wednesday. Arsenal-Brentford is the first one. Of course, here you might have your safe bet 1.3, but there are some questions raised, I guess, Tom, after the draw at Stamford Bridge, playing against 10 men, against the three top rivals, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man City. No wins for Arsenal. I remember you mentioning this at the beginning of the season. If you want to win the Premier League, you have to beat your rivals. You have to be ambitious. And there was something lacking in this team. Also, looks like 𝐿𝐿𝐴 is not having an impact on the team when he's there. And also, we saw very little from Xhaka when he showed up. Of course, he is the best together with Declan Rice. So some issues, I guess, with this Arsenal. Of course, still top of the table, Tom, and Brentford only 3 points away this season. So it should be an easy fixture for Arsenal.
Well, I think your point about the season is really interesting, actually. And I think it's something that we need to talk about in terms of... No, I think it's absolutely right, because mainly because it's my point, you've said back to me. But I think that they're 5 points clear, right? That's great. But if they beat Man City when they should have beat Man City, that puts them 8 points clear of Man City. If they beat Chelsea when they should beat Chelsea with 10 men, that puts them 7 points clear as opposed to 6 or 8, or whatever it is, right? Every single time you don't beat the teams around you, the gap that should be there is smaller. They're all going to beat Brighton. They're all going to beat Sunderland. They're all going to beat yada, 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 right? But they've got to beat each other. And Man City, if they beat Arsenal later in the season, Chelsea beat Arsenal later in the season, Liverpool beat Arsenal for the second time this season, the gap is gone. That's where the gap is in the end between these top teams. Same as the relegation teams. If Leeds beat West Ham or West Ham beat Leeds, that's going to be a difference maker down the other end. You've got to beat the teams around you in order to get above them come the end of the season. The mini league is 4 teams at the top. And at the moment, Arsenal have not won those games. Right now, it's not hurting them. But it will, I think, down the slope unless they're able to win the second game later in the season. But looking at the game itself, I think that they did really well, Arsenal, to win the game against a brilliant rearguard action, to draw the game after a brilliant rearguard action from Chelsea. Chelsea scored the goal and they shut up shop, and they proved to a lot of us, me very much included, that they can defend. They can defend. They can be well organised. They can, if not see out a game, at least stay in a game where most of us thought they would go on to lose following the Caicedo red. So great for Chelsea. We'll talk about them later. In terms of Arsenal, I think Mikel Merino is probably their best striker. And I think they'll stick with that now, even if 𝐿𝐿𝐴 is sort of fit to start. I would stick with Merino. I think him and 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 and Saka and potentially 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, that's a pretty good front four. I think Merino showed again he's got great striker's instincts. He showed once again that he's able to lead the line. He showed once again he adds a physicality that the others have struggled with. And 𝐿𝐿𝐴 has not done enough this season. He just has not done enough as we head into December to be Arsenal's number 9. I think even though 𝗍𝐿𝐴 and Mosquera were good, I think to not have Saliba and to not have Gabriel is a problem. We don't know how fit Saliba is going to be for this game, but if not fit for Sunday, I'd be surprised if he's fit for Wednesday. And look, there are some issues there, but Mosquera and 𝗍𝐿𝐴 more than good enough to get through this game. In terms of Brentford, home form great, away form shocking. Story, Taylor's out of time for them. I think that they played some good football at moments against Burnley at the weekend in that 3-1 victory. Same in the loss against Brighton. But really, they seem to be just relying on getting a penalty and Thiago scoring it. If you are going to bet on Brentford for this game, look at Thiago, who's already in a double figures for the Premier League this season. Really impressive. But I think half of those have been penalties. So look out for a penalty to be awarded for Brentford if they are going to score. But look, the tactics remain the same. Henderson over the top to Thiago, either scores or wins a penalty. Coyote long throw. That's it, and that's all. That's all they do. And they compete in games. And I think they'll compete in this game. I think they'll certainly give Arsenal a game. I certainly wouldn't discount them bloodying a nose in the first half, Brentford. But you've got to go for the Arsenal win in the end at 1.36. It's probably the safest bet of everything that's coming up in midweek. As ever, look at Arsenal win to 0. It's only 2 because it happens so regularly. If they do win, it's going to be quite tight. Certainly under 3.5 goals I'll be looking at in this game. Arsenal minus 1.5 at 1.91. 1-0 victory. Yeah, okay. It's still not amazing. But I'd be looking at potentially Arsenal to win this. 2 goals to 0. Reasonably tight. Group bet of 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. 2.5. Oh, I don't know. I'm saying it out loud. I'm thinking maybe Thiago over the top goal with the 𝗍𝐿𝐴, Mosquera centre half pairing. But look, I'll stick with it. Low scoring Arsenal victory. At least under 2 goals Arsenal win. Just about.
Yeah, our AI smart bet is telling us under goals for this game, under 3.5 or under 2.5. So they don't see many goals. You can check also with the corner markets under 10.5. I'm not sure about it. And the other one is under goals. For this one, Arsenal to score 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, or 𝐿𝐿𝐴. And Chelsea fans of Brentford or draw. I guess this is more a wish than a wishful thinking rather than the reality of this game, but who knows? Indeed, really interesting game is the next one. Brighton, Aston Villa, two of the most informed teams in the Premier League, fifth against the fourth. Brighton, 10 points out of the last 12. Is not easy right now to go to Nottingham and win, and they did it, and they are especially strong playing at home. That's why they are favorites despite playing Aston Villa. Amazing run for them is 5 consecutive wins in all competitions. Even remember they started the season really poorly, and in a bad game against Wolves with some controversy with the referee, Tom, they were able to get all 3 points thanks to a big goal, a beautiful goal from outside the box.
Yeah, scored more goals outside the box than the other team in the league this season, Aston Villa. They're scoring a lot of crackers. And can you rely on that across the season? I don't know. Apparently they can, but it's not usual. I mean, look, let's start with Brighton. What's great about Brighton, how many times we had this conversation over the years, is that a couple of players fall out of form or aren't fit. Mitoma and 𝗵𝗵's been really poor this season. You're like, right, two of their top players are struggling. They're going to start struggling. 𝗙𝗵𝗵 and 𝐿𝐴𝐵 have probably been their two best players in recent weeks, the replacement for the two that have been struggling. You think, oh, Rutter's not doing it up front. They've got to go back to 34, 35-year-old Danny Welbeck. 7 goals in the Premier League this season. Been fantastic. Like, they bring players in and the level doesn't drop. Players fall out of form and the new players that come in excel. It's just the way Brighton do it. And that's great coaching from 𝗀𝗻𝗀. It's great player acquisition. It's bringing the right sort of players in for the club and the way the manager wants to play. All of it. And the win against Forest, I thought, was just exceptional. In a weekend of really impressive performances from lots of teams, I think that's going to go under the radar, but it shouldn't. It's a brilliant victory for Brighton and 𝐻𝗫 Albion. I know Forest played a couple of days earlier in Europe, which is always difficult for teams, but I think the way they controlled the game, having scored the first goal, they could have scored more than that. The brilliance of Gruda, the brilliance of Minte, all of it. I think there were so many great performances, defensively very solid, and cruise to victory at a really tough place to go. So they're really impressive, Brighton. Plus, their home form has been good, beating Brentford in recent times, Leeds in recent times. They are able to beat the poor teams, to give the good teams a really good game, and fifth is no fluke. In terms of Villa, I think they are benefiting from a bad summer, which is a weird thing to say, but they weren't able to reinvest massively in the squad, so the team has been really tight, and because of that, they're playing more or less the same team, week in, week out. And beyond a couple of changes, for example, Marlon's come in for Watkins, who hasn't scored many goals this season, but has led the line well. Tielemans has come in for Onana, but that's in many ways an upgrade in terms of technical ability. Beyond that, it's 𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 and it's Pau Torres and 𝐿𝐵𝐻𝐻. They just have a pretty regular team that is playing together 90 minutes, more or less, every single week. And you can see that in the understanding. You can see that in the battling spirit. You can see it in all of the way they're performing. And they're winning games tight, which I always think is really impressive. 1-0 wins, 2-1 wins. Every single game, they are in it till the end. And if they're in it till the end, they have the magic to find a way to win. And that makes this an incredibly tough game to call. And it means I'm going to sit firmly on the fence and say draw at 3.65. I think it screams draw, this one. 0-0 or 1-1 together comes in at 4.5. If you are going to go for a win, you've got to go tight. 2-1 either way. Look at the Brentford game for Brighton. Look at the Wolves game for Villa. Really, really tight. The Leeds away game, very similar to that as well, I think this will be. So pick a team by exactly 1 goal. I'd say maybe Brighton, look at that at 4, better odds than Villa by exactly 1 goal. Then individually, 2 players that stand out. Welbeck anytime is W money. Rodgers anytime is W money. So 2 players to look at. Very tight game. 1 goal either way. I would just go for Brighton as the home team, but draw will be the top tip.
Very difficult indeed to predict this one. Draw is also possible, both teams to score. For Timothy, the smart bet is going for Aston Villa to win 3.4. In my opinion, the odds should be much more balanced because the bookies are placing Brighton really favorite for this one, 2.2, whereas Aston Villa is 3.4. So there is value if you are backing Unai Emery's team. Now let's go to Turf Moor. Burnley, Crystal Palace. Burnley penultimate in the standings, but only 1 point away from West Ham. Everyone lost in the bottom part of the standings. Is 4 consecutive defeats for Burnley now, and Palace took the lead, were better than Man United in the first half, Tom, but they disappeared and they ended up losing this game.
Yeah, disappointing result for Palace at the weekend. I'm not quite sure what happened in the second half, to be honest. I think United played well, which we'll get to later in the show, but I think Palace struggled, which really surprised me. But let's start with Burnley, who, they're a nice team. There's a great quote I always think of from the legendary Liverpool manager Bill Shankly when he used to talk about West Ham, and he used to say, good club, family club, 3 points. And that's Burnley. They're a good club. They're a family club. They play good football, 3 points. They don't have the battling spirit. They don't have the creativity. They don't have the Premier League quality. And at times, they seem to be controlling the game. Did it at West Ham. Did it against Chelsea. Did it against Brentford this weekend. There's moments where you think, yeah, Florentino looks tidy and Cullen's a pro and all that. And then they concede a goal and it's kind of over. And that's the issue with not having the quality. That's what the Premier League is. It's about having the quality when the moment comes. And these are really good championship players. I don't think it's the Premier League squad, and they keep getting found out. And they've got to win games like this to stay up. The three that are fighting for the 2 final spots in the relegation places, being Leeds, Burnley, and West Ham, whoever goes in a run of 4 games, 1 in a row, will stay up, because consistency is what it's all about. And they ain't going to beat each other enough times to stay up, right? What they got to do is get some unexpected points. The Leeds win over Man City, if it had happened, would have been incredible, because that's the kind of game where they need to beat the top teams. They're going to need to pick up 2 or 3 wins against top teams. And this counts for Burnley. It's a top team they're facing this weekend, and they've got to do whatever they can to win it, but I just can't see it. Like, I think second half, they lacked energy, Palace, against Man United, but in the first half, you saw how good Wharton was. You saw how good Daniel Munoz was. I think losing 𝐿𝐿mail Sarr to injury is significant, because I think 𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿 is a drop down in terms of quality and what he brings, and I think Pino and 𝐸𝐸𝐿 behind Mateta is not as good as what it was last season, being Eze and Sarr. But I do still think the rest of the field, the team is incredibly good. And I think Mateta, 7 goals in the Premier League this season, speaks for itself, takes pens, but also scores from open play. So look, I think it's going to be a nice game. I think it'll be some nice football played. And in the end, I think Palace will win it. I would follow a similar pathway to the 2-1 victory for Man United against Palace, but the other way round. So I think it'll be like Palace will be in the, Burnley will be in the game, they'll do quite well, maybe score the opening goal, but as the game wears on and game wears on and game wears on, then the quality will come out and I think Palace will win it by 2-1. So Palace win is 1.8. Palace win and both teams score is 4. And Mateta anytime is 2.1. Do Mateta and Palace, there's good money to be made there. I think both teams will score in this game, but I think you'd always shade for Crystal Palace because Burnley haven't got the Premier League quality.
But Mateta scoring penalties and shooting them in the Julian Alvarez way. Some months ago, the goal would be disallowed. Now you have to repeat the penalty. Mateta to score and Crystal Palace to win. 𝐿𝐸𝐿 over 2.5 goals. Double chance Crystal Palace and under 2.5 goals. Well, you should go to Burnley and win. You should go to Wolves and win. And this is a massive game for Nottingham Forest to test also their improvement after the defeat against Brighton and after the great win they got away from home at Anfield, remember, but Wolves got better against Aston Villa. They even scored. The goal was disallowed, but again, Tom, I guess there is no reason to not back a team playing against Wolves at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, there's no scenario I go for a Wolves win. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. So in the end, we're going to go for a Forest win here. Has there been much change since Roy Edwards has come in? Yeah, I guess to a point. I think they look a bit more organised. Fine, okay. But look, this is a poor squad. It's a poor squad, poorly put together, incredibly low on confidence with the manager who's already taken the team down from the Premier League. I think that Stratton Larson's not scoring. I think that the creativity behind him is not amazing. The midfield can't run. The defense can't defend. The goalkeepers ain't great. What else is there to say? They will win games this season, right? They ain't going to go down winning no game. So maybe it's a game like this where they can kind of get lift off. But at the moment, with no wins from the amount of games played, to stay up this season, Wolves would need to find a run of form somewhere to win 5 in a row. And they did it last season, so maybe they can do it again this. But currently, I just don't see any pathway to it. Get back to me after a couple of wins and I'll change my view. But for the minute, I can only see them losing every game they play. In terms of Forest, I think it was one game too many at the weekend against Brighton, who are a very good team. Brighton played well and Forest had played a couple of days previous. I think that could be a problem. I think Murillo being out and Morato coming in is a drop down in quality. I think Savona had a great game at, was it Anfield, where he was really good, but I think there is an issue there at fullback with 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻 out. I don't think he's as good as he was. I think Singari and Anderson's a really good pairing. Singari brings the fight and Anderson brings the drive, and that's a good pair. I think the wings have been poor, and Doy and Dominguez and 1 or 2 others. I think it's been a big drop-off from last season when it was Hudson-Odoi and Elanga killing teams, but that's also been made up by 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜, giving some legs to a team offensively they didn't have when Chris Wood was up front. So, look, you know exactly what the Sean Dyche team is going to be. They're going to low block or mid-low block. They're going to try and hit on the break. They're going to go to the wings. They're going to try and attack with pace. And I think 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 and Gibbs-White against this Wolves defensive trio and poor and slow defensive midfield, they can have a field day here. So take the Forest win at 2.31. I've never felt like Forest would go down, and I think they'll win games like this to move away from danger. I think once they've scored 1, they could score 2, could score 3. Throw that group bet together at 3.75. And in fact, I'll take the handicap here. Minus 1.5 Forest at 4.33. That's 2-0 or more for Nottingham Forest. I think they win this quite comfortably, and those odds, well worth a punt.
Well, everyone is going for Forest to win. 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻, 𝗲𝗲𝗄, also Forest to win and over 1.5 goals. Wolves are going to Championship. I think this is pretty clear now with only 2 points. And we are in December. Next one is Leeds, Chelsea. I was impressed by Chelsea, I have to say, against Arsenal. I agree with Maresca. When they were 11 against 11, they were the better team. But even when they were 1 man down, they kept playing pretty well, and you couldn't realize they were 1 man down. I think Reece James was impressive in the middle of the park, and even the defense, Tom, improved. Even the goalkeeper improved. We saw a couple of saves from Robert Sanchez. It's a pity that we didn't see a little bit more from Delap or from Pedro Neto, but this Chelsea is growing in the season, and I'm happy to see this pace and this Chelsea. And what a player is 𝐻𝐿𝐴, Tom. He had faced Lamine Yamal and Saka, and he got alive pretty well, I would say. He played really well both games, stopping these 2 stars.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. I think 𝐻𝐿𝐴 is probably the only world-class player in this team that Chelsea have got. I think, again, I always have this weird metric for world-class. I like to keep it incredibly elite. I think you've got 1 team of 11 players. And if you picked a left-back to save humanity right now, I think Marc 𝐻𝐿𝐴 would be that guy. I think offensively, I think defensively, I think game management, all the kind of pretending to be fouled stuff, he's getting that right. He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. And I think you've picked out the right player for Chelsea. But more broadly, you know, Caicedo's suspended, but let's say Andre Santos comes in, or Reece James continues in midfield alongside Enzo Fernandez, and someone else comes in further forward. Maybe it'll be Cole Palmer back from injury. The options are fantastic. I think Fofana and Chalobah had great games. You're right to mention Sanchez too. Made some really great stops against Arsenal. Can still have 1 great game and a howler game the next week, sure. But for the minute, his recent form suggests he's a good player. I wonder about the front line. João Pedro, Delap, I'm still not sure they work independently of each other. I think there was a plan to play them together. I'm not quite seeing them individually working quite yet for Chelsea, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes across the season. I think that are Chelsea going to win the league? I don't think so. Are they in the title race? Yep, absolutely. I think they could go within 6 points of the team that win the Premier League this season, should it be Arsenal or Man City. But if we're looking for a 3rd team right now in the title race, it ain't Liverpool, it's Chelsea. And it's games like this that are going to be informative as to whether they can challenge or not. In terms of Leeds, it's going the way that we thought it would for the newly promoted sides. And I think that at the start of the season, when they had Longstaff and Stark in midfield, there was a great energy. Those guys being out leave 𝗀𝗄 slow, Tanaka slow, Ampadu slow. That's a problem in central midfield. That power of the 3 is now gone. Up front, 𝗲𝗏, Gnonto, all of them. Are they scoring many goals? They create many chances? Not really. 𝐶𝐿𝐵𝒄 came on, had a brilliant second half against Man City, but he can't play 90 minutes. So you've got to probably do 𝐿𝐿 for a half and 𝐿𝐵𝒄𝐿Ewin for a half. If you start 𝐿𝐵𝒄𝐿Ewin, he ain't going to get to 60 minutes. So issues there. But if you've got 𝐿𝐵𝒄𝐿Ewin firing and on form, he can do some serious damage, as we saw at the weekend. Defensively, too, a few players out now. Strike, Rodon, these are championship players. Perry has now started to make mistakes in goal. It's all coming together, I think, for Leeds. And they're going to need some new blood in January to get above West Ham. I think it's West Ham or Leeds for 18th. That's the conversation we're going to be having now for the next 5-6 months. And I keep saying it, we'll do it later. I do think West Ham will improve. I think they have improved under Nuno. I think maybe Leeds are playing at their ceiling. I think West Ham are playing well below their ceiling. And I think that in the end could prove costly. But again, win a game like this changes everything. But I'll take the Chelsea win at 1.79, reasonably generous. I think Chelsea's scoring plenty of goals right now. 3 against Barca, 2 against Burnley, 3 against Wolves, couple against Qarabağ. I expect at least 2 goals for Chelsea here. So a minus 1.5 handicap is your first line for double your money. And I just can't see who's going to score for Leeds. Unless they bundle in a corner or Robert Sanchez throws in a howler. Chelsea win to 0, also doubles your money.
All right, good to see this Chelsea pretty much alive recently with a couple of great games against Barcelona and Arsenal, big rivals. Also now they have to win away from home. We saw them struggling sometimes. Chelsea over 1.5 goals. Chelsea should be in the conversation for the title race. Correct score 2-1. And well, let's see if they are able to keep the level in the last couple of months. Also was an important week for Liverpool. They beat West Ham, was unimpressive, but some decisions that Arne Slot took. First one, of course, dropping Salah for the very first time in the Premier League. Also, Isak scoring his first goal in the Premier League for Liverpool. Again, Tom, I think this Liverpool should do more, but it's a good start, especially keeping a clean sheet after all the defensive issues. Also, Joe Gomez back to the team, and this could be a tricky game because Sunderland keep being impressive this season, and they've done well against big teams this season.
Yeah, look, I mean, I wasn't wildly impressed by Liverpool against West Ham. I think the game was pretty even. I think that West Ham did the same game plan as Nottingham Forest, and I think Forest scored the opening goal the previous week, and West Ham didn't score the opening goal, and that changes the way that sort of that setup goes. And I think as well, West Ham not having Somerville on the break made a massive difference for Liverpool because there was no counter press that certainly Forest had, and I think Sunderland have as well in people like Traore and 𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐼 and 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀. Look, I think the changes had to be made. Mo Salah, I think, is finished at the very top level in terms of being the talisman for Liverpool. He gave us one final great season, and I think it's over now. And I think we're going to look to the future with Liverpool. And the future is Florian Wirtz in behind Alexander Isak. That's the future. Has to be the present. And Arne Slot knows that, and he's finally come to that realization, having given Salah chance after chance after chance this season. That had to happen. And I think bringing Joe Gomez back in from the cold made a big difference as well. Look, again, I mentioned there that they weren't tested the weekend. But I think Bradley being injured, Frimpong being unavailable, stop the Szoboszlai thing, get Gomez in there, get him to play a conventional right back, and it'll improve 𝐿𝐵𝒄𝐿Ewin, Van Dijk and 𝗀𝗏𝗄, which it did. So solid in defence at the weekend. I think that helped Gravenberch and McAllister to look better. I think that allowed Florian Wirtz to look better, and it allowed Dominic Szoboszlai to maraud, which is kind of what he wants to do. So team made a lot more sense against West Ham, and they deserved to win it, even though they weren't particularly spectacular. But that's what you've got to be now. Solid, unspectacular, win. Do that for a few weeks and work on the fireworks later. In terms of Sunderland, really important win against Bournemouth. Did they play well? Not particularly, certainly in the first half. I think Bournemouth could have been out of sight, but the fighting spirit to come back was absolutely incredible. And when they got the first, you just felt the second was coming. You felt the third was coming. It felt inevitable in the end. Scoring from corners, so important. Sunderland keep on doing it. Great threat from Ballard and 𝐴LDIRITE and one or two others from set pieces. Xhaka was great again. Front line continues to hassle everyone. I think this Sunderland front line will trouble Liverpool on the break more than West Ham did. I can see it being a bit similar to Forest in that sense. But if you're looking for a win here, I'd still stick with Liverpool, even though it's only 1.39. I think Liverpool will find a way to win here. If they score 1, I think 2, then 3. That group bet doubles your money. Minus 1.5 handicap is 2, which is not amazing. So look at some individuals. And Alexander Isak has scored 1. I expect him now to go on a run of scoring goals and be the man this team is built around. Isak with confidence could change everything for Liverpool. 𝐸𝐴CCA to score is 1.91 anytime. Double that with the Liverpool win. That should double your money bet. And I think Sunderland at home, they're giving a lot of teams a really, really good game. But beyond the Chelsea game away from home, they've not actually been amazing on the road this season, losing at Fulham, losing at Burnley. Can't see them getting anything here. So look for the Liverpool win, and I think it'll be reasonably comfortable, if uninspiring.
Well, we have some people going for Sunderland here with these crazy odds of 9 or 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴, for instance. Sunderland is a handicap +2, which could be a good option so they don't lose by more than 1 goal. Staking my kidneys on Sunderland. Be careful, Timothy, be careful. If only this was at Sunderland, indeed, but still. Liverpool are struggling also at Anfield. Sunderland gave Arsenal a hard time. They did. They beat Chelsea also away. So be careful. This game could be a tricky one for Liverpool. And for Thursday, we have Man United, West Ham. Always so difficult to read. This Man United, they should have been 2-3-0 down against Crystal Palace. They bounced back in the second half, winning the game. Also, it was pitiful, their performance against Everton. But, of course, Tom, they are super favorites. Still, I think the odds are very low to back them against West Ham. And I guess the conversation about West Ham is indeed 𝗵𝗵𝗄 and his 2 stupid yellow cards. And also how bad are West Ham going forward with always only Bowen being dangerous in this team.
Yeah, and he's in pretty bad form as well. So there are issues there with West Ham, certainly, which we'll get to. Look, I think start with Man United. I think that Ahmad on the right-hand side and Dalot on the left gives them great balance. And I think that makes the Amorim system work. Without that pairing, it doesn't. I think you get a great 60 minutes out of Casemiro. Beyond that, everyone that comes in to replace him is a huge drop-off. Really impressive to win without 𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐴. I think that was important for Man United, important for Mason Mount as well to have a pivotal role in that victory. He's sort of not done it since going to Man United as a £60 million player, Champions League winner. So great to see him hitting some form. Great goal as well to win the game. And also 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜𝐭𝐼 goal, undervalued from the weekend. It was a really smart finish to sort of wrong foot the goalkeeper, fire it across him. Was it a cross? I think it was a shot. And look, he's a man that's been linked with the move to West Ham or a loan away in January, 𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜. He don't want to do that. He wants to be a Man United striker. So it was a really important thing for him to do that in the absence of Benjamin Šeško. That spot remains up for grabs. So let's see if 𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 can take it in the next few weeks. But overall, the form has been fine for Man United, defensively conceding too many goals. And when they go behind, they have struggled a lot in recent weeks, which is why the Palace game, I think, was even more impressive. But look, West Ham, I think the win against Newcastle and Burnley, those wins were well-deserved and well-earned. I think there were points against Bournemouth where they played pretty well. But I think when they rely on their defense, they do concede too many goals. I think the manager was right to get Kilman out and bring Mavropanos in against Liverpool at the weekend. Kilman's a disaster zone. Mavropanos is unreliable, but Todibo and Mavropanos I thought were fine against Liverpool. I think they were all fine against Liverpool. I don't think it was that bad a performance. Defensively, fine. Potts and Magassa, fine. The trouble is, because 𝐸𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴's got another one of those injuries that should take 3 days and ends up being 8 months. They had to move Mateus Fernandes out left. Doing that means you don't have that tenacity in midfield. The good news is Paqueta's gone. Paqueta's a joke. He no assists, doesn't really score any goals from open play. For Brazil's number 10, contributes nothing to this team. Areola, the goalkeeper, has more assists this season than Lucas Paqueta. What does that tell you? And that, I mean, he said some post-game about like the FA or whatever not giving him enough support for his sort of gambling scandal that he was cleared of. Pathetic. Grow up. Take some responsibility for your actions. He's always whinging. He's always complaining. He's always losing the ball then pretending to be fouled. He's a joke. And the sooner that he can be gone and West Ham can buy 2 players to actually fight for this team, the better, because his attitude stinks. And look, he's great at defending the ball. And in big games, because he wants to get a move, he'll kind of turn up. But without him, I'd move Fernandes back. Hopefully for West Ham, 𝐸𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴 is fit. If that happens, Bowen and 𝐸𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴 either side give you options. If not, play 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴, I guess. Give him another whirl because they need pace in those wide positions to play it to Wilson. Otherwise, there's nothing in this West Ham team. But look, it's going to be a bad season for West Ham. It's already a bad season for West Ham. I do think in January, they've got to fix some of these issues that Graham Potter didn't seem to identify in the summer. And well, it's them or Leeds for 18th and 17th. That's going to be the story of it. If West Ham are to get something here, they score the first goal and hold on for dear life in the same way Everton did. If you score the first goal against Man United, normally you've got more of a chance of winning it. But look, who would bet on West Ham right now? Certainly me. Man U win at 1.47. I think it's an obvious one. Can't see who's going to score for West Ham. So Man U win to 0 is 3. That's your first reasonable double your money bet. And I know he struggled the last couple of games, but he's their top scorer this season. Brighton and 𝗵𝗲𝗀, anytime at 2.25. Add that to a Man U win. You'll make some money here. West Ham are crap.
First half draw is our smart bet for this one, 2.7. I also like the draw option. 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗲𝗀𝗀 is telling us 𝗵𝗵𝗀 to score at any time. Well, there is some belief here on West Ham. Indeed. Tom is not confident about West Ham. Okay, midweek games to keep us entertained in this cold December in the UK. Tom, remember, guys, that you have available for you our tipster competitions starting a new month. Now in December, you can participate in the monthly one. There you go, always led by Ukrainian guys somehow, and the Premier League one, of course. There we go. We have this is the October tipster champions. We haven't announced yet the November one, and of course you have the Premier League tipster competitions, and you have rivals as well for you. This is the Premier League one. Okay, Tom, let's go with your safe bet.
Safe bet for midweek is Arsenal to win at home against Brentford. 5 wins in 6 at home for the Gunners. Unbeaten, only 2 goals conceded. They're gonna surely win at home against Brentford. So take that safe.
And the ACCA?
Treble again for me. I keep getting 2 of 3. It's winding me up. So let's hope it comes off for this one. Arsenal to win is my safe bet. So put that in there. Newcastle to pick up victory at home against struggling Tottenham Hotspur, and Man City to go to Fulham and win. The only risk in the portfolio for me brings it in at a pretty generous 3.46, I'd say. Anything that doubles your money is all right by me.
Okay, we had it a bit mixed with some La Liga games, but you could see also the selections made by Tom Rennie. Tom, see you this week again. We have more Premier League. This is December, so it's getting hectic in the Premier League. See you soon. Bye-bye.